Hey, I'm Rhiannon and this is Travel Talking, the Travltalk podcast. Travltalk is the app that helps you connect with fellow travellers wherever you are in the world. We are the voice of real travellers, discovering the world one country at a time, with a few guests joining us and an entire planet to cover.
Go your own way.
Travltalk, we're like Tinder for travel without the fucking. Search for Travltalk on the App Store. That's Travltalk without the E. Go your own way.
Hi and welcome back to Travel Talking this week. On the show, we're going to interview Pauli Just. He's just joined us as our CFO at Travltalk. And this is a special episode for me because Pauli and I met 16 years ago in America when we were both over there doing a student exchange at the University of California, Irvine. Pauli, welcome to the show.
Hello, good to be here.
Yeah, and tell us where you're from.
I'm from Austria, lived a long time in Vienna.
And you've travelled the world, haven't you? Quite a bit.
Yes, I have been to more than 35 countries, I think.
And I think we've been to about 18 together, right?
So every second country I went.
I was there.
Oh.
Oh dear. I mean, we've done some pretty cool countries. We've done a lot of, we did a bit of South America. You were in Mexico. We did Serbia, Romania, Macedonia.
Right, Argentina.
Yeah. Look, we've got plenty of stories that we could no doubt bore our audience with all day. But actually, we're here to talk a little bit about how traveling has changed over the years. When we first started traveling, there was no internet really, right?
No, right. Basically, we got our information from the Lonely Planet, from mouth to mouth.
That's right. Word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
Actually, this show is for everyone, and it's really nice to have someone who's not Aussie or Kiwi or British. And, we would love to sort of appeal to German speakers. We know that traveling is obviously different for every culture. And I think you can hopefully give us a little bit of an insight of what it's like to travel as an Austrian when you first start out. So, we're talking about going back to that time when, the Lonely Planet ruled, and basically if you didn't have one, you didn't know where you were going. So tell me, the first place that you ever traveled to alone outside of Europe was Bangkok, Thailand, right?
Yes, right.
And what did you do there?
Well, basically it was a summer university. So with a group of people from my university, but I didn't know them before. So it was kind of, on the one side, out of my comfort zone because I didn't know anybody. On the other side, there were still people around from the same country. So it was a good experience. First time being actually at another university, another country, to see how people study there, how universities works.
So even though you went with some people from Austria,
Yes.
ultimately, you're in Bangkok and it's a totally different culture. So I'm sure you ended up integrating somewhat with local community.
At university, we shared also classes with Thai students. So we did group works together with Thai students. So we were really closely connected to them. In our free time, basically, we did trips together. This was maybe one of the most beautiful things of this journey that, you really hooked up with the local people. They showed you the way they live there, and they did a deep dive into their culture.
Yeah, right. And Bangkok's pretty different from Vienna, right? So obviously, how old were you at the time?
It was my early 20s, I think. Yeah.
Sure. So, okay, you get to know the locals, but I mean, what did you sort of notice immediately when you stepped off the plane in your first week in Bangkok? What would you say was the most overwhelming difference other than the fact you're in Asia?
Well, the city itself, it's so totally different. Transportation is basically you go with the tuk-tuks, I think we call them, so these are little motorcycles. You have all the street foods. Here and there you see people walking with an elephant through the street. So
Everything is different, isn't it?
yeah, completely. It feels like that you come to a completely new world,
Foreign world, right?
Yes.
And when it came to differences, obviously some can be a little bit confronting if you're not used to ways of doing things or they're totally different to how you would do that back home. Did you find that it was difficult to embrace a new culture, or was it fairly quick for you to sort of, with the Thai students, assimilate yourself somewhat into their culture?
No, it was actually very easy actually this is what brings you in the end together. The different cultures, because you exchange a lot about it. And this is basically a really nice way to find together. To figure out, okay, what are the differences, but then in the end to conclude, yeah, the food is different, but in the end, people are not so much different. They have different languages and all this stuff, but in the end, we were a group of young people, and we just enjoyed spending our time together. Doing.
Yeah, you really hit the nail on the head with traveling, I think. You go to a different country and you almost expect to see something completely different from your home. But as you scratch the surface a bit deeper, you realize that everyone, as you said, is the same. Everyone cares about, people important to them. Everyone, most people in this world, thankfully, don't want to hurt others. And they're really interested about you as well, right? Because, you're there learning about Thailand, but they then have the opportunity to learn about Austria and Vienna, right?
Yeah, totally. I think every time you travel, you basically maybe you bring the world a bit together. Sounds maybe a bit pathetic, but it is like this.
It's not pathetic. I mean, that's what we're
It's
doing at Travltalk,
connecting
right?
the people. So
Yeah.
and it creates a mutual understanding. So
It does. And, obviously we've traveled quite a bit, but, for those listening, the way that Pauli and I actually met, well, I was, doing a semester abroad in the University of California, Irvine. And as we mentioned, internet was still dial-up at that time. So I went to the university register. I was looking for a house to stay in. And I actually looked at a printed document that said just footsteps from the beach. And I thought, I bet that language is a little bit over the top. I'm sure it's just, trying to draw me in. So I went and actually made a phone call on a payphone and got the dial tone and thought, oh, God, someone's on the internet. Tried again, and then Pauli answered the phone. And, our conversation was very short, wasn't it? I said, hey, I'm from Australia. Is the house available? And you were like, yes. And we agreed that I would go see it that night. And you actually came and picked me up on the side of Huntington Beach Rd. Yeah. In a Mustang convertible, right?
Yeah, Sally.
Mustang Sally, yeah. So if you imagine, I'm thrilled. I'm a 19-year-old who's just been told, hey, do you want to come check out this house? I'll pick you up, because I didn't have any way of getting around. And, I really had no idea what my life was going to turn out like at that point. And I don't think you did either, right?
Completely not. But I think today I realized what have changed, or no, how I changed
From traveling.
from traveling. Yes.
So what do you think is the biggest shift that you've seen in yourself over the time that you've traveled?
I think I don't mind uncertainty. I think with traveling, I booked a flight. I came to a country. I had basically no plan what to do next. But maybe in the beginning it stressed me a bit. But then very quickly I realized it doesn't matter. There is always a way forward. You don't have to be concerned about it. And I think somehow that this understanding got part of my personality in the end. Also in my profession, that I don't mind if I come to a new job. I have a new challenge up front. I know there's always a way forward. I don't have to be afraid. I can trust in myself. And maybe I think this is one of the most important learnings. Maybe definitely what I took from traveling.
Yeah, that's so powerful that you can, start traveling. And, I think everyone is scared when they first leave their comfort zone. I certainly was. And then what you're saying is that over the years, when you're sort of confronted with situations where you are not familiar with the surroundings and you have to make quick decisions, you tend to get better at them each time, right?
Yes, I think maybe you get a better gut feeling in the end, or you just allow yourself to trust in it.
And I mean, you mentioned work. So you were at Telekom Austria for 12 years, right?
Yes, 12 years. And I have 3 out of these 12 years I've spent abroad, especially in Croatia and in Macedonia. But also I was also traveling to all other countries. Telekom Austria has subsidiaries.
So, and you said earlier that because of traveling, you really don't feel too overwhelmed in new situations or, when working. I imagine the skills that you developed from traveling and understanding different cultures became quite valuable when you were in Telekom Austria dealing with people from Macedonia, Croatia. I mean, those cultures are very different from Austria, right?
Actually, not, to be fair. I mean, there's a different language, but even when it comes to language, we realize that we share a common history with a lot of countries. I mean, every country does this in Europe, but you can see that in our language, in German language, you have some words from Slavic language. It's also the other way around. So they're using quite a lot of German words in their language. So, and I would say the daily life, it's not very different, but I think how to say, I don't know, I think the personality of the people is a bit different. I think Balkan people are a bit more relaxed, taking things not too serious.
So the surprise, in fact, is that people that you might perceive would be quite different because obviously culturally, we all have things that make us, I suppose, who we are from our countries. But when we travel, we end up finding out that there's actually not much difference between two people, right?
Yeah, right. And especially, I think if you're a young person in your 20s, you basically share the same interest than any other 20-year-old boy or girl out there. So you want to have a good time. You want to discover the world. You want to get to know other people.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I remember myself now. Growing up in Australia and in Adelaide, we're so isolated from the rest of the world, and it's relatively homogenous, or was back then when I was growing up in the 90s. And certainly when I stepped further afield, I think, at first I was a little bit hesitant. I thought, basically all I had in terms of reference to different nationalities and cultures tended to come from TV or specifically stereotypes. And I think what surprised me when I started to travel is that these stereotypes, that there are aspects that obviously make a person who they are from the culture that they're from. But as you said, a 20-year-old just wants to have fun, go out drinking, and you find that it doesn't even matter what country you're from, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think also that we often do get a wrong picture from other countries, from people in other countries, and you can only get rid of this stereotype if you go there, if you get to know the people, if you get to know the culture. Because often I think also via media, they transport certain either news or bad news or stereotypes. I think that's the easiest. They can sell this. It's the easiest for them to sell this, but and then you realize that how much your picture changes of a country once you go there. So I always thought about, for example, about Mexico, that it's kind of also of a dangerous country, I mean, sure, there are certain rules you should follow, but then you realize all the stereotypes you had in your head, they just literally they disappear, and you be there, and it's like, oh, what a great time,
Yeah, so you actually studied in Mexico too, didn't you? How long did you spend there?
A half year at the university, and then basically I stayed in Mexico for another couple of months before I did a trip around the world in the end. So from there went to the States, Fiji, Australia, New Zealand.
And you mentioned that, initially you thought Mexico was dangerous, and I'm sure many people out there do. In fact, I came to visit you in Mexico, and I think, I was comforted by the fact that you were already there and obviously knew that you would know the local landscape. But that kind of prejudice that anyone arrives with thinking it's dangerous, and then to sort of realize that you've lived in Mexico for 6 months and didn't really have any issues beyond, a few bits here and there, right? Full disclosure.
Yeah, just some small issues, but nothing serious. No. Yeah. So, I mean, the police might be corrupt, they fine you for nothing, but nothing serious. At the end, if you look back, it's actually some good memories.
It's some good stories. I mean, ultimately, that is part of travel. It would be wrong for us to sit here and pretend that, you don't have any issues or challenges when traveling. And, I know that you bought a car in Mexico, and that was kind of the source of frustration. A few weeks back, we had an episode specifically on road tripping, and Elise kind of shared some of the frustrations and what it's like to drive in a different country. I know for sure I know what it's like because I refuse to get in your VW, right, and go on a road trip with you.
Yeah, this was your biggest mistake. This is where the fun starts, buying a very old Volkswagen Beetle in Mexico.
So for our listeners at home, I just want to explain. Okay, it was definitely a very cute Beetle. Now, there was a few problems with the car, namely that it didn't have a great security system. So you would leave it outside the house, and on a weekly basis, you would come back down and nothing would be inside the car, including your speaker system and everything else, right?
Yeah, actually, we left the windows open so they don't break it. So we just took everything out of the car. But yeah.
And my other favorite story, and perhaps the major reason why I decided not to take the long road trip with you in the VW was about a month or a couple of weeks earlier, I believe you went on a road trip with some of the people you were studying with. You put the backpacks on the roof rack, and when you arrived at your destination, you looked above the car and there were no roof racks and no backpack, right?
Yes, right. It just fell off. We didn't realize. If you go with 100 kilometers per hour in an old Volkswagen Beetle, it's so loud you don't hear anything. You don't realize it. So yeah, and then we were standing there without any luggage. So.
And again, that's where you learn how to adapt very quickly, right?
Yeah. But I tell you, it was one of the best weekends ever.
Yeah, and I think actually when we use these examples of saying what can go wrong with traveling, they often become, some of your most empowering stories. I also remember in Mexico when we were, so again, this is before the internet, right? So it was very hard to get information of what was nearby. And for some reason, we were convinced that there were some monkeys in a jungle that we had to see, right?
Yes.
And I don't even remember how we actually ended up there because I think it was close to Palenque or something like that, right?
Yeah, it was some. I don't even remember where exactly, but it was basically in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, we ended up in this little village. So actually, there was no bus stop. We had to ask the bus driver to stop there. It's like, why do you want to get out of here?
And the Lonely Planet, I'm sure of this because this is where, I adore the Lonely Planet. It used to be so reliable, but every now and then, someone who had actually just traveled there and had a good time in the town would mention, oh, you could check this place out. And we were trying to go like weirder and wackier, right? So we're like, oh, in the Lonely Planet, it says you can see a monkey. And, we arrived there and we got out, as you said, there was no bus stop. And we sort of like, there was nothing in this town. And we like, finally found someone and we're like, excuse me, can we go see the monkey tour? And he looked at us like we were crazy, I think, right?
Yeah, but I mean, somehow, I don't know, I can't remember how it was, but in the end, we ended up with I wouldn't call it my guide, but yeah, he took us
to an island to see some monkeys, right? And the problem was because we didn't have anywhere to go, like there was no way of getting out of this town. We were like, well, where can we stay tonight? And there was not anywhere to stay, was there?
Yeah, there was no infrastructure for tourists at all. There was no hotel, no hostel. There was no private accommodation. There was literally nothing. So I don't know how this place ended up in a Lonely Planet.
Yeah.
But in the end, yeah, it was awesome. So we slept in this barn on the ground. So.
But it was through hospitality in the sense that the guy who was probably like one of the leaders of the town, and the town was, wouldn't have had more than like 500 people, but he could see that we needed a bed for the night, and they obviously didn't have any beds to give us. But he said, look, you're welcome to have, this little shed area. And you had a little dog at the time, and we had, was it Sylvia, I think her name was?
Oh, the Italian girl. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So we were 3 people. And instead of kind of like turning us away and thinking that, look, obviously our Spanish, I think at the time was limited, but instead of turning us away and going, who the hell are you? You've just, arrived in our town. What do you think you're doing? They were so hospitable. And then to top it all off, I think there was a specific thing happening in the town that night. It was a quincera, right?
Yes, something like that. Was it a birthday or quincera?
I think is it called, I'm so sorry guys out there. It's when you turn 15 and in Mexico, that's a really important birthday for a girl.
Yes, right.
Quinceañera. There you go.
Quinceañera.
But it was a real coincidence because obviously they said, look, here's somewhere to sleep for tonight, but actually, would you like to join us? Because there's this big party happening. And of course, we were like, wow, that's lovely. And we wanted to contribute, but we didn't know what to do. There was not even like a shop in the town other than, like a tiny store. So we thought, we can't shop empty-handed. So we thought, well, go buy some beer. I even remember that was an interesting mission because we were like, excuse me, where can I buy beer? And after a few different places being pointed at, it eventually was the fridge of someone's house, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, but they really welcomed us there. Literally invited us to their house, join their private party. And I think it was nice for them to have us there.
No, and it was such a special memory that we can obviously look back on now, and sort of we never intended to have that experience, but the way it panned out was simply a result of a time when you couldn't really be clear on where you were going and where you're about to arrive. But the beauty of that story remains, right?
Right, yeah. And it's really an overwhelming feeling if somebody, invites you to your house just because you ended up in the village and don't know what to do, We were completely stranger to them, but they said, okay, you're here to just join, have a good time. And
the kindness of strangers when traveling is something that has continually overwhelmed me. But, also we talked and started out the show discussing, what it was like to travel before there was the internet. And, now with e-travel, you can book ahead. I mean, basically, if you don't book a hostel ahead, you're in fear of not having a bed. But, if you arrive and there isn't something there, you can usually jump on Wi-Fi and sort out what you're going to do next. However, I think part of me is really glad that we got to travel before, I suppose, digital somewhat took over and ruled your life. But at the same time, a big reason for creating Travltalk is because I think often you can still arrive to a place and find for some reason you're not connecting, right? So it's a big part of traveling is to sort of feel like comfortable in the area that you're in and feel like you're meeting like-minded people. And every now and then you do arrive to a place and you can't find someone on your wavelength, right? And, the point of Travltalk obviously is to help you find other travelers in the area that, you may be able to explore that city with if you're feeling quite alone.
Yeah, that's definitely the beauty of Travltalk. You can go alone by your own to another country, but in the end, enjoying traveling with other people and sharing these memories is still the best thing, So
Yeah, and I think one of the hardest parts about traveling, I did Iguazu. I've done it twice. And each time I did it with, I can't actually tell you the names of the people I did it with because, I was in a hostel and we went along and we did it. And it's such a beautiful place. But part of me is sad because I can't actually remember who I experienced that with. And we've obviously been to so many countries. And I think that's the memories are so much warmer because I found someone to share that experience and connect with, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. But before we go, I mean, obviously, we were talking about 16 years ago how you started traveling and you talked about becoming a different person and obviously taking the learnings of traveling back with you back home. But how do you travel today? I mean, what do you like on the other side?
Yeah, the way I've traveled surely changed now a lot. Back then, I just took my backpack and left the country. Now with a family and a small kid, there's a bit of more planning involved. But nevertheless, as soon as we are on the road, it's kind of the same feeling, It's a journey, it's a vacation, it's a great time ahead of us.
And maybe because you've traveled so much before you sort of settled down and had a kid, the prospect of traveling with a family is not so overwhelming. What would you say? No, it's still difficult with a child.
No, for example, I mean, we are thinking now since a half year if we should do a long distance flight with our small kid. I think.
You don't look like you're ready for it just yet.
If I imagine myself being 10 hours on a plane with a little kid, I'm not sure if if I can do this. But nevertheless, I also have friends who did this, and they say it's totally okay, but it's just getting out of a comfort zone again, So maybe back then, if it was a big step for me to travel alone, now maybe it's a big step to make a long distance travel with my little son. So.
Well, that's another exciting way to spend the next half of your life, traveling in a different way. But I look forward to hearing how that goes. Well, thanks so much for being on the show. As I said, it's a really special moment for me because, we have traveled to so many places and the person I am, I just couldn't be the person I am today if I hadn't met you. And you've had an incredible impact on my life, but also allowed me to see the world so differently, understand different cultural perspectives, especially about Austria. I've been there so many times. And, we're really excited that you've joined the Travltalk team. And we're obviously planning to develop an Austrian office and have a strategic point in Europe because while we're headquartered in London and, that's where we're going to stay, traveling is for everyone. And we love to share different perspectives. And it's been really nice to hear an Austrian perspective on the show today.
It was good to be here. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Well, welcome to the team and let's see how we go from here.
Yes.
We're about to take on a £5 million investment. And you guys, the reason we're doing that is so that, we can get Travltalk in the hands of everyone because we really think that this app is going to change the world and really make the world a smaller place and unite people from different cultures, different backgrounds, and just simply facilitate the ability to meet people when on the road and hopefully take some of the fear out if you're afraid of going by yourself. So don't forget to download Travltalk now and tell everyone about it. And we look forward to catching you next week.
Travltalk, we're like Tinder for travel without the fucking. Search for Travltalk on the App Store. That's Travltalk without the E. Go your own way.